So welcome everybody to this week's training. For those of you who don't know who I am, my name is Annaleah. I am the Upkid Teacher Manager. Today we are going to do a training on children with special needs, and then after that training we will jump into questions, whether they're onboarding needs or just questions with the training. So, jumping in. So I like to start this training off with pointing out that every child, whether they have special needs or not, is an individual and has individual needs. Which I think is really cool, because even if we are dealing with children that have special needs, it's a lot easier to see them as just human, because their needs are individual, just like any other neurotypical child has their own needs that need to be met as well. So before we actually jump into the training, we're going to start with just some questions. So I would like to know who here has worked with kids with special needs before.
I have.
So
I haven't. I have.
cool.
I have.
Awesome. Awesome. So pretty diverse group. Some have, some haven't. Just a reminder, if you want to put comments or questions in the chat, that is an available resource as well. But that's really awesome. I'm glad that we have some people that have worked with these special needs kids before. So next question I have for those that have worked with kids with special needs: what challenges have you seen arise when having a special needs child in a classroom?
Communication. How well does the child communicate in the classroom? That's one of the big ones.
Yeah. Both communication from the child, but also knowing how to communicate with the child. I would say both sides is very difficult. Perfect.
I haven't worked with special needs kids, but I would think that also them trying to communicate with other kids
Yeah.
would be a challenge.
Yep. Perfect. Okay. So then as well, what has been your favorite part about working with children with special needs?
Well, for me, my other job is working with children on the spectrum. And I love those aha moments where they finally get something that they weren't able to master a month ago. And just seeing them just light up of, oh my gosh, I did that.
Yeah. Awesome. Cool. Okay. So going on, communication definitely is one of those really big challenges that we have to deal with when it comes to working with special needs kids. Some other challenges, though, is medical needs and adjustments. There will be some kids that we work with that potentially need to have administered medicine every single day as part of their special needs. Also different adjustments, such as if a kid is in a wheelchair, making sure that they have easy access to getting outside and that there's still things for them to do in outside time. That can be a challenge. As well, mental and physical development gaps. What I mean by this is you will sometimes work with kids that have special needs that physically are older than what they mentally are capable of. For example, I have a special needs sister-in-law who I love dearly. She physically is 18 years old, but mentally has the capacity of more of an 11, 12-year-old. So just those gaps can be a challenge. As well, they generally require more attention, both emotionally and physically. Things are harder for them, and so having that extra support when it comes to transitions can be something that presents itself as a challenge. As well, not necessarily a challenge with the special needs child themselves, but with other kids having a misunderstanding of how to interact. I worked with a kid who, anytime there was a ball or anything in play, he thought that it was appropriate to pick that ball up and to throw it at the other kids. That's just what he thought you did with these balls. And the other kids didn't really understand that, so they had a hard time knowing how to play with him still, but how to not get injured in that play because they wanted to still do things like kickball. So helping those other kids know a better way to play with a special needs child can be a challenge that is presented. But there are things that we can do to accommodate these children. Have there been things that you have found or done that has been successful when it comes to making sure that these challenges are met and have been accommodated for?
I would say being patient with them and, taking it at their pace.
Yeah, I think definitely patience. Yesterday, somebody mentioned along with patience, the not being afraid to mention things multiple times, that just constant reminder, which does take that patience as well from us to be able to say multiple times, hey, let's remember we're cleaning up now.
Yeah.
Positive reinforcement when you've told them for the third time, hey, it's time to clean up now, and they get it all done.
Yeah.
Hey, doing such a great job. Hey, way to go. Hey, amazing.
Perfect. I love that. Yep. Definitely recognizing the accomplishments that they do achieve is a good accommodation for these children. It also promotes that want and desire to do it again. Perfect. I love both of those. Other accommodations that are more condition specific, if we are working with a child that is non-vocal, a challenge that could arise because of that is, again, that frustration for the child with being unable to communicate. They're hungry, but they don't know how to tell you that. But also as a teacher, trying to figure out why they're upset, why they're doing what they're doing can be a challenge. So some possible accommodations, learning just those basic, simple sign language signs, such as asking if they're hungry, if they need more, if they're all done, if they need to use the toilet, anything like those. These are all very simple signs that can greatly increase the communication that you're able to have with these special needs kids. But also recognizing that when they're pointing at something, that is also a form of communication for them. If they gesture or grunt, most likely that is their way of trying to communicate with you too. So trying to understand what those mean can be another accommodation, as well as using pictures or words that are on paper, so that it can point to the things that they need or want. Yes, no questions. These are super simple that they can nod or shake their head to. We had a teacher email us a list of possible accommodations in this one as well. And she said, you know, having two different options in your hands. So there's an option in your right hand and an option in your left hand, and they can point to the option that they want. These are all accommodations that can make communication easier for these non-vocal kids. Another challenge is sensory processing overload or disorder. They get easily overwhelmed by noise in a classroom. Another challenge that they may face is having a hard time with transitions. So possible accommodations for this one is, you know, having that quiet place that they're able to go in a classroom where they can just sit and be by themselves for a little bit. And then giving transition warnings or try to make them fun. Examples of that would be, in 5 minutes, we're going to clean up so we can go outside. They now know that at some point really soon we will be cleaning up, which can give a header to a transition and make it easier. But if they still have a hard time with that, you know, going over and having more of that one-on-one time with them and saying, okay, it's time to clean up now. Would you like to clean up like a robot, or would you like to clean up like an airplane? And just trying to make it fun so that it seems more like play than just a transition. This Americans with Disabilities Act is something that the government has put out that states 3 things. One, as a daycare facility, childcare providers are not allowed to discriminate against someone just because of their special needs. These childcare providers must provide an equal opportunity in their center for children and parents with special needs. This act also states that child cares cannot exclude those with special needs unless their presence would pose a threat to the health or safety of others. So again, we are wanting to make sure that all of our children in these daycares are safe. But again, going back to that top one, we can't exclude someone just because they have a special need. The third thing that this act states is that child cares must make reasonable modifications unless doing so would constitute a fundamental alteration or undue burden. A good example of this is if you are a daycare facility that is 1 story and you have someone that is in a wheelchair, you could very easily put in just a ramp from the parking lot to your front door. And because it's all 1 story, they can then get to the places that they need to go in that wheelchair. If you had a 2 or 3 story building though, it takes it from simply just putting a ramp in to just get into the building. But if you don't have an elevator, you would have to install an elevator. You would have to provide some other means, and that would mean altering your whole facility, and that would be a reason to constitute not taking someone with special needs. Are there any questions up until this point with anything?
Yeah.
So far, so good.
Okay. So going on, some things that I like to point out is that there are benefits of having special needs children in daycares, both for the kid with special needs, but also for the children that don't have special needs. Some of those benefits for the special needs children, though, is it gives them a chance to learn by observing and interacting with other children. It gives them a time, place, and support to build relationships with other children. It gives them chances to practice social skills that they will need for the rest of their life. It gives them exposure to a wide variety of challenging activities, but it also puts them in a place where the learning of how to accomplish those challenging activities is not only supported, but encouraged. It also gives them a chance to build relationships with caring adults other than their parents. Sadly, we live in a world that isn't always accepting and loving to these children with special needs. So any place where we are allowed to show them that love is a good chance, and it's a good inclusion for them. Some benefits for your neurotypical children: they can develop an increased appreciation and acceptance of individual differences. They have an increase in empathy for others and their situations. It prepares them for adult life in an inclusive society. So we hopefully are seeing changes in which children and adults with special needs are more accepted in society. And then it also gives them opportunities to master activities by practicing and teaching others. One of the ways that we as humans learn the best is by practicing. So if we allow these children to help these kids with special needs in their activities as well, it gives them that chance to teach and to better master what they're doing themselves. And then communication with parents. These are important things that we as caregivers need to know to best support the children that we work with that have special needs. I'll talk about 3 different things. The first one being language. How is their family deciding to label the things that their child is going through for their family? Some families don't like the word special needs. They would prefer to call it something else. So knowing that beforehand will allow for us to make sure that that child is being cared for in language ways, the same way that their family is caring for them. The second thing is child care needs. What are specific things that they need assistance with? Whether it's toileting, moving around, eating, all of these things that they need assistance for that we need to be aware of so that we can best care for them while they are in our care. And then the last one, any accommodation. I like to see this as meeting the children halfway. So if they are really, really good at doing art projects, but they struggle more so with the sharing with other kids, we can be aware and help them in that area where they struggle while letting them excel in the area of art, which really mostly helps them to feel like they are independent, but that they're still receiving this support in the areas that they need support in. And then making inclusion a positive experience. We as childcare providers and teachers, as caregivers, we have a really great opportunity to make these experiences positive for the children that we work with. Some of the ways that we are able to ensure that is we get to create an environment, both physically and emotionally, where everyone is invited to participate as much as they want. A lot of these special needs children, they are excluded from activities simply because people don't think or want them to be included or think that they can be included in these activities. So we get to create an environment where we're making sure that art activities are something that they can do. Singing time, making sure that they can participate in the way that they want to participate. All of these things are things that we get to do to ensure that they are cared for and feel that love. We also have an amazing opportunity where we get to answer kids' questions with simple, straightforward honesty and encouraging open dialogue about disabilities and abilities among children and parents. I truly believe that a lot of the negativity that is in the world towards these special needs children and adults is simply because of lack of understanding. So if we are able to answer and encourage questions from children, and make sure that we're doing so with honesty, it increases the knowledge that these kids have, and it allows for that empathy to grow while they're young. Another way is we get to help children feel comfortable with each other and develop friendships based on their shared interests. So if you know that Tommy and Susie both really love basketball, you are able to encourage Susie to play with Tommy in that way, which again will help them develop that friendship. But it also again gives that child with special needs a feeling of being independent, because they do understand and they do have interests. They are still human, even with these differences in needs. So what are ways that you have tried to provide a positive experience when working with special needs?
Just be really inclusive in your dialogue, okay? Most of these little kids are not that different from any other neurotypical child. They want to build friendships. They want to be accepted. They want to know that they're good, that they're smart, that they can do things. Because too often, children who have special needs get told, no, you can't, no, you can't, no, you can't. Be that person in their life that says to them, of course you can. It may take them a little longer to get the concept. It may take them a little longer to get from point A to point B in what you're teaching. But if we as teachers don't tell these little kids, you know, you can do anything that your friend over there can, then they won't believe it themselves.
Yeah, I love that. I really like that. Any other things that we have done to make sure we're providing a positive experience?
Yeah, just kind of building off that, I would say normalizing the mistake making experience and really being the person who kind of deviates from the you have to do it perfectly the first try norm. And just making sure to keep that in mind when encouraging maybe neurotypical kids and making sure to refrain from like, wow, you got that on your first try. And maybe if it's taking a little bit longer, appropriate self-disclosure about, hey, you know, when I was learning how to do this, it took me a really long time to get it, and that's totally okay. And yeah, just making them feel comfortable and seen and like their experience is shared in ways that it can be.
Perfect. Awesome. So recognizing that they're still trying, even if they haven't succeeded in their mind yet. I like that one. Any other ways? Okay. Do we have any questions about this training before I stop the recording?
I have a question.
Yes.
So what would be a good wording? For example, if you see, you know, other kids not being fair to special needs kids, what would be the best way to approach those kids?
That is a great question. So I actually have experience with this, and I think it really depends on the situation as well. But I can give you the situation that I was in. We had a 4-year-old boy who was in a 2-year-old classroom because he was not potty trained. He mentally would not have been in a good environment had he have been in the 4-year-old room.
Mhm.
And some of these 2-year-olds, you know, they don't understand things themselves. They don't get
Yeah.
that communication yet really with you. But some of the older kids too would pick on him, and it opened up a conversation where I was allowed to look at them and say, you know, he does love like chase or tag, or there are ways in which you can play with him that don't involve you getting injured or hurt, because he understands those things while he doesn't necessarily understand that the ball needs to stay on the ground when we're playing with the ball.
Mhm.
So I think it's just dependent on the kid too, but like showing the areas in which they do excel so that they can share in those interests versus just saying like, oh, he's not able to do this. It is that pointing out that they are good at things. It just might not be everything that the other children want to do.
Good answer.
Thanks. Any other questions? That was a really good question. I appreciate that. Okay, I am going to stop the recording here then. Oh, if you'll let me.